Hey fam, I'm back and I'm going to be letting folks in on our next live with educators and on the ground activists who are fighting to protect our public education system. Let me take my glasses off so I can see. And I will be inviting guests. And here we go. Hello. Oh, hey. Here we go. Chloe's. Hey, fam.
Hello.
Hey, I'm just gonna Chloe, if you want to take off the start the introductions, I'm going to introduce Temecula Valley families and anyone who's available. I have a few folks who said they might try and join. So if you don't mind starting us out, I can be like clicking through. And we've got Rob is joining us. I can't hear you, Chloe. Is that me? No? Can you hear me? Chloe, your microphone is off. And I don't
No,
think, Monica, I want you to join if you can, but I don't know if you can join because you may
okay.
not have enough.
Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
good. Yes, I can.
Okay, my phone's been, and folks,
Great.
please work with me. My technology's been doing something weird all day where it's just acting like it's not in line. But Rob, Aaron, Allie, hello, and hello, everyone. Thank you, Monica. Please, and folks, let me know throughout the evening. So tonight, what we're going to deal with is we have to move now from fear and reaction now to actual strategy, okay?
Right.
And actually supporting our students. Because here's the glory of the story. Folks, we now need to stop saying, oh my God, these are the racist things that they're allowing in our system. Oh my God, these are the racist things that they're saying. I mean, folks, it is what it is. But now we have to figure out how do we support, especially our
Right.
Black students and our Black parents, okay? How do we support them amongst all this anti-Blackness? How do we support them? Like, for example, right now, I mean, Allie, I don't want to take your thunder with Temecula. That's just that's killing me. And we also have an issue in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri, where apparently a Black student was suspended for filming her teacher talking about and using the N-word. I mean, the focus went from the fact this man is an absolute racist to the fact that, oh, she violated a cell phone policy. But see, this is one thing that Digital Sister taught me. You got to look closely at what they try to get you to focus on. So we're more focused on a cell phone policy than we are stepping up for this sister who was exposed to this aggression by this white teacher. And this is where our kids are. And so now we have folks and Aaron, yes, perfect time. I hope you got my message. Hello, everyone who's just joining us. I'm gonna tell you right now what we're gonna have to do, folks. We're gonna have to be 10 toes on the ground for our Black kids. Stop letting them play with us. Stop playing in our faces. Because let me tell you something. When these parents keep hollering about taxpayers, folks, When these folks keep hollering about taxpayers, they don't mean black folks. They mean white parents. And they don't even mean every white parent when they say taxpayer. You are a taxpayer too. And you start demanding like you are a taxpayer. You demand a set. Yes, reef divers. Nothing worse than white woke with a savior complex. Oh, that's reef diver. Reef diver. We're not going to get into that today because here's the thing. It's not about a savior complex. It is about let's start treating each other like the human beings. When you say all students matter, all students can't matter because we wouldn't keep having Jim Crow conversations. If you read in the history books, are these not the conversations our ancestors had? So let's stop acting like this country has come so far and done so much, because right now we as taxpayers, first of all as parents, but as taxpayers, we should not have to demand that our children be treated like children.
Yeah.
Period.
So with that, I'm so grateful for the folks that are joining. This is like a stellar crew of folks. A lot of people who have experience dealing with supporting public education, making schools inclusive and welcoming for all students. And if I could just quickly have people do a really quick 1-sentence kind of intro about who they are and where they're at. And then I would love to have Erin Jones, who's start up first, because she has a lot of expertise. I'll have you go last, Erin. She has a lot of expertise. She gets called in when these things happen. So Rob, do you want to just quickly do an introduction, then Jazz, Jen, Vanessa, and is NC Blue Dot, is it? I don't know your first name. I know you by
I'm
your...
Nancy.
Nancy. Okay, yeah. Great. So Rob, if you want to start it off, just really quick intro.
Yeah, I'm Rob Rogers. I am coming to you from Colorado Springs, where we just elected the first Black mayor in the city's history this past week. So we've been celebrating that for a while. And then I also have been paying a lot of attention to Christian nationalism and its impact on education for a long time, 10, 12 years.
Thank you so much for joining this week. And then we'll go to Jazz.
Hi, I'm Jazz. Most people call me Jazz. My name is CJ, and I have had experience in the education system in that I was a teacher in a public school in a red dot city for a while, and these issues were already up. I then later went to law school, and I am amazed at how the law is being ignored, not being applied, and I'm most interested in the concrete cast that system that is being made right now, where some people are listened to, others are not. Where just like Chloe said, so maybe we could talk about that later.
Exactly.
But go ahead.
Jen, if you could introduce yourself briefly.
I'm Jen. I am a regional director for Defensive Democracy, and I'm in Temecula, California, where we are in a hotbed of Christian nationalist takeover going after Black families, LGBTQ families, and now teachers. And it's just crazy.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Vanessa.
Yes, hi, Vanessa. I go by Change the System on here. I just started the Defense of Democracy chapter here in Escambia County. So, hey, yeah, we were suing the school district here for violating the students' rights, First Amendment, 14th Amendment. Penn America is involved in that. One of the other ladies in the lawsuit is also on TikTok, and she's going to be sitting in with Chris Hayes tonight to talk about what's happening here. But yeah, they just like probably what's happening in Temecula County or Temecula everywhere, we're just getting bombarded with book challenges. We just had 5 new ones this week. Even though we're not even doing challenges, everything's on hold. So yeah, we need all the help we can get. So I'm just here to learn and hopefully share my experience and answer any questions, because there's so much misinformation about this topic.
Thank you. And you're an educator, right? I want to make it clear that you have experience in the classroom. No. Okay. So you're just a community advocate. You got involved, you saw what was going on, and you started speaking up.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay. And Nancy.
I'm Nancy. I'm from North Carolina. I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia. And I like to talk about Christian nationalism infiltrated into policy and how dangerous that is right now for our republic, and educating people on TikTok and the community about how there's a direct link from white evangelical Christianity into Christian nationalism ideology into policy, and how that's affecting our nation.
Right.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be learning from y'all
I
too.
appreciate you. And you're teaching me. And so now I'm going to hand it off to Erin. I'm going to do a little mini intro, and then Erin, you can take it from there. But it gets involved in policy, and then that means education policy. And what we've also seen is that affects our kids, right? And so political ideology actually impacts the ability for children to learn, which is kind of, I believe, a basic human right. And Erin Jones is a DEI educator, former classroom educator, but she actually gets called in when incidents happen. As a DEI educator, we'd like to think people are proactive and doing this work, educating folks to create safe communities from the front end. And what we see a lot as educators is that districts will engage in DEI work after there are problems. So I would love, Erin, for you can introduce yourself and add anything that I missed. And then I want to start off with Temecula, and then we'll kind of go broadly. But basically, there was a substitute teacher in Temecula schools. Somebody videoed it, and maybe some of you folks have seen it, on TikTok. But the teacher was basically saying the N-word. He both called Black children Negroes multiple times, and then used the actual N-word. Even as of now, I'm hearing that there's no communication or correspondence that's come out from the district, from the school. People think that the teacher may have been removed from the classroom, but there has been no communication and no acknowledgement of this incident, even though obviously the whole town is buzzing about it, and now this app is buzzing as well. So
update real quick, because I found out just before this, he has been removed from the classroom. He has been banned from teaching in any classrooms at all right now.
Okay, but there isn't any official letters that have been written to the community.
That in fact I found from a local news article. But
okay, great.
So he's out, but they have not communicated at all.
Okay, so thanks. So Erin, help us out here. What's going on? What are your thoughts as somebody who has a lot of expertise in this area?
So, and I want to share that I have expertise not just as a classroom teacher, but also as the mother of 3 Black children. We've lived in all Black communities. We've lived in predominantly white communities where we were the only family who look like us, and we are not small. So I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm the smallest one in our house. And then I have also been a state administrator, and I'm the first Black woman in the state of Washington to run for any state office. I ran to lead public schools in 2016 and lost by 1 point. So I got to experience all of the things that our children are experiencing. I got to experience on the campaign trail. And so when I lost the election, it kind of propelled me into having conversations with people about race and equity. Not because that's what I wanted, but it's what people really needed at the time. And people were realizing then in 2017, really, I think as a response to watching Trump run against Clinton, people were starting to wake up a little bit. And so I kind of got propelled into that work. But I will say that in the last 3 years, I've been called into more classrooms and schools and districts where children have been targeted for being Black or queer than ever in my 32 years in schools. We're seeing a rise in that kind of behavior. And so I get called into buildings. Now, fortunately, there are some other school districts that are getting out in front of this and saying, hey, Erin, can you come work with us and help our students even think about how to talk about all things identity? So race, gender, sexuality, all the things. And that's really exciting to see. So on the one side, it's really awful that there are these instances where I get called in because of an event that's happened. But on the other side, I'm really excited by administrators, both school district administrators and building administrators, who are willing to say head on, man, we don't know how to talk about this. We need someone who can just facilitate this conversation. And that really excites me and gives me incredible hope. And so there's a group of people that I have been working with for the last 3 years who are all across the country. And we are having these conversations and thinking about how do we talk? Because those of us over 50, we were taught to not talk about this stuff. So we suck at talking about race and gender and sexuality because we were taught good people don't talk about this stuff. You can't get good at something you don't do, something you don't practice. And so I see myself as a lifetime athlete. I just ran a half marathon on Sunday at 51 years old. As a lifetime athlete, I see myself, number one, as a coach, is how can I coach people? It's not about shaming people. It's about how do I coach people into having the conversations that I think we need to have to get healthy. And we can't just ignore them, and we can't just say, well, it happened so long ago, it's not happening anymore. That doesn't help us move forward.
So what are your thoughts on, okay, a parent wasn't told that her kid tells her this thing happened. No, there's no information from the school. Then she sees on TikTok it actually did happen and gets upset, goes on TikTok, talks about it. Obviously now the reason she can't join us today is because TikTok basically banned her, right, for talking about it, which is not okay, but that's the way that these social media platforms work. She would be able to join us if she weren't banned for talking about how her child is basically being racially abused. Okay. So anyway, now there's a response. The school is taking some action, but there's no communication. What do you think parents, specifically Black families, but all families in Temecula should be able to, what should they be expecting from site administrators and from the board, the school board? And, what kind of advice would you give them in terms of, where the community should be taking action?
So several things. I think one of the things that I'm learning as I work with administrators, and I was an administrator for 15 years, so I know what that work is. It's hard. There are not very many of us who look like me in administration, at least not in the Pacific Northwest. So it was always a challenge. But what I have learned is that white administrators don't know how to talk about this stuff. And so what I find is when these things happen, either it's a white male administrator, there is no word that we could use that would feel the same way to him as it does when we say the N-word to a Black child. So there's just a lack of empathy there, and just ignore it. I hear administrators say this, it's just a word, just ignore it. Why are you making it such a big deal? And part of that comes out of when you can't feel it and you don't understand it, it's easy to just write it off. And what I tell white administrators is, I don't care if you've never been called a horrible word. Understand this is a horrible word. And if I were to call your wife the B word, you'd be having thoughts with me. You'd be having conversations with me. So it's the same thing. I want you to imagine now I'm calling your wife the B word. And you don't have to feel it for yourself, but you know what you feel like if I called your wife that. That's what this child is feeling. So it's really educating principals and school district administrators and school boards. All right. And my husband is the one who said, he's a large Black man who's an English teacher. He said, just call their wife the B word and then see what happens. And so I use that analogy a lot just to help them understand this is the way. I think they need to feel the weight of it. Second thing, never go into an administrator by yourself. So always have a friend with you. Parents, don't ever go by yourself, because here's what happens. It becomes he said, she said, and you need an advocate. And it can be scary to walk into those spaces and not be really sure, especially if this is your first time. Take someone with you. Now, in the state of Washington, we have something called the ombuds, and you can call the ombuds office and they will send someone to go with you. They'll make sure someone's on the phone with you if they can't come in person, but I would always go with someone else. And then if you don't get the answers right away, you got to keep knocking on the door. The last thing I'll say, and this is something I tell principals when I train principals, by law in the state of Washington, they cannot release the consequences for a teacher or student. So let's say that a student in your child's class calls your child the N-word or the B word or whatever they call them. By law in my state, you can't uncover what the consequences are for those children. And so a lot of times families feel like there's been no consequence. And in actuality, there has been, but the state has a law that you're not allowed to say anything. Here's what I tell administrators. You have to tell the parents that there is something being done. Even if you can't tell them the specifics, I believe that administrators have a responsibility to stay in communication with the family and the child who's been harmed. And we don't do a great job of that. And the excuse is always, well, by law, we're not allowed to. Yeah, you're not allowed to share the exact details, but you have an obligation to make sure that child knows there are consequences happening, to make sure that that child knows you are still carrying them, you're still holding them, you should be checking in with that child on a regular basis to make sure that child is whole. So that's the least you can do, is check in with them on a regular. How are things going? How are things going? When the child and the family feel seen, it's a whole different thing than when you just ignore it and hope that it will go away. We are not going away. We're not going away.
And then finally, I think the other question I have, because you deal with whole schools. I mean, it's not just about one incident, right? Like these things don't happen in a vacuum. And so you have the initial person and the initial party, but kids talk, parents talk. And there's also this kind of trauma that happens to a community, right? Because maybe I was called the N-word in my school as a parent, and then my kid goes to school. I hear about it. It didn't even affect my kid. And now I'm reliving like this is not a safe place for my kid. What do you think that parents in Temecula have a right to demand from the school, even if, they did everything right and, maybe this teacher is an aberration or whatever? What do they have a right to ask for to help make the whole community whole again and a safe place for everyone? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I have lots of thoughts, and I don't know that it's so much about rights, but I would say as a former administrator, it's my job to create spaces where children thrive and families thrive. And so it shouldn't just be about punishing a child, and it shouldn't just be about that pound of flesh. It should be about reconciliation. It should be about wholeness and healing. So it's not just about making sure that we address that one thing. It's about how do we think about the wholeness and healing of all of us collectively. And so there should be, but I will say, as someone who grew up in another country, America is not about reconciliation. It's not about wholeness. It's about punishment. It's about like trying to deal with a thing at a time. Look at our incarceration system. In the country that I grew up in, it was about reconciliation. It was about making sure that people had been kind of reprogrammed. They'd been able to learn some new skills and new ways of being. We are not about that life in the United States. And I think until we commit to that, we're not going to see wholeness and healing. I think we have to be committed, and that takes a new way of being and a new way of thinking about school. So Temecula folks, I think you just need to demand, like, we are not well, and we are taxpayers. So back to what Chloe was saying in the beginning, we are taxpayers, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? I mean, that is part of what we've all been promised. And so we have to demand that. And it means we have to be doing school differently. And we've got to just keep pressing the system for a different way of being. But I think we have to be able to imagine a different way of being. And it's hard to do because we've been living in the status quo for so long.
Thank you so much. And so I guess next, I want to hear from Chloe, because you're an educator as well. And obviously stuff is going on in your state all the time. What are some thoughts you have, really actionable thoughts or advice or questions you have for the community? We have several community members in the comments. And at this moment, I also want to say, please follow Monica Lacombe. She's a parent. I would have invited her up, but she doesn't have enough followers to go live. Please follow her account so that she can join us in future conversations. And thank her for helping to moderate this conversation. But Chloe, what are your thoughts on, if you had a parent that came to you and said, this just happened, and obviously you say it's happening all the time. This isn't a new thing, unfortunately. What thoughts do you have for the community on actions they should be taking or could be taking to help support Black children and Black families?
First of all, I've worked in a number of school districts. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay. So first of all, I've worked in a number of school districts, and let me just go on and say the scandal. When things happen with other groups, folks get 10 toes down and attend every school board meeting. When something happens with a Black child, we get kind of quiet. Folks, the one thing that I always push in all of my trainings that deal with community organizing is just that. How to form community. We need to stop saying it takes a village and the village goes quiet when something happens to a Black child. This is what I keep telling everybody. You must get your people and go to school board meetings and speak on it and speak. I had one school board meeting where we were able to organize. They had almost 250 folks come up in that meeting, and it was dealing with people using ableist language with a disabled child. Now imagine if we showed up for our Black children like that. We must show up like that in groups for them. We must make our demands in groups with these schools, okay? First of all, when we start creating community, here's the biggest thing I don't see in our schools. In some of these spaces, we're going to have to center Black parents, because I'm going to say it again with the rhetoric. And Digital Sister, you speak, oh, she speaks that so tough. Lord have mercy. Please follow her to understand rhetoric. When these people say all students, when they say taxpayers, they are not talking about Black children, okay? So we need to center Black parents and Black students so we can listen to their experiences, okay? So we can listen to their experiences and what they want, okay? That's what we have to do. That's my greatest suggestion. In the
Oh, in
community.
1 second, Aaron, can you mute your mic just because I can hear your fork? Thanks. Okay, yeah, keep going, Chloe.
And we have to listen, because schools are not designed, and they're not designed to listen to our Black parents.
Mhm.
And it's apparent with the way all of this is unfolding. So there needs to be a space where Black parents can speak. There needs to be a place where their children can speak. And when we let them speak without interrupting, and then we ask them what they would like to see happen. And then we respect their wishes so that they can start healing, but so also they can feel that community support. Folks, it doesn't have to be anything big and fancy. It's just a matter of showing that you care. And the problem is we haven't shown that we care. I look at this, what's going on in Missouri. I now wonder, the more I'm hearing about the stories, how many people are 10 toes down with this Black girl in Springfield, Missouri, who's being targeted for filming her teacher using the N-word. And everyone's down on her, but you're hearing like maybe one or two sentences about the teacher. So actionable steps, folks. First of all, everyone needs to be dedicated to showing up. It could be at school boards, means whatever. Everyone needs to be dedicated. Even if you're saying, let's all make an appointment and go talk to administration, everyone needs to be there. And the voices that need to be centered are Black parents and Black students. And those are my actionable steps right now.
Thank you. And then I want to welcome Shireen Mitchell, who joined us. She's been joining us. She joined us last time. I really appreciate her. And this idea of taxpayers, it just keeps coming up over and over again about taxpayers, and who, that's really code for this idea of who pays taxes and who doesn't. But I wanted to give Shireen an opportunity to just really quickly introduce herself and share any thoughts she's had in terms of what she's seeing when it comes to the way that we as a society or schools handle what happens when Black children are exposed to hate speech and exposed to discriminatory treatment or language.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for speaking to that. I've been trying to make sure that people hear the words that are being used. When taxpayer language is used, I try to remind people that those people who are saying that they pay taxes or that this is about taxpayers is that they believe that children of color are not paying taxes. Their parents are not paying taxes. They believe that their money is taking care of those children, which means they think they have the right to co-parent with you. Now, if you turn it on its head and say the same thing back, I pay taxes, I need to co-parent with you, I'm pretty sure they'll get pretty upset about that. But the point of it is to say that the stereotype that the children of color do not have the resources, one, to defend themselves from the actions of these parents, but that the other parents are too busy sitting home on welfare to take care of their kids. That's what they're actually saying out loud. If you catch some of the Moms for Liberty language, they say if your child is having an emotional problem at school, well, take them to therapy. What they're saying is their children have the right to harass your children, and your job isn't to come to the school to course correct those children, but to take your child to therapy so that they have some place to feel safe. The problem is my child should feel safe at school sitting next to your child. And if that's not the case, then yes, we are co-parenting. I'm about to check your child. And that is, if you hear it properly, you understand that they believe they have more rights as parents than any parent of color. That their one complaint, which has been happening, you know that, Florida, that one parent, the one child complained to the parent, that one parent went and reported to the school board, that one parent. None of the other children complained. None of the other parents complained. But what did they end up doing? They ended up taking the children one by one out of the room without telling the parents what was happening. That is what we have to stop. We have to hear those messages so that we know that the rest of the parents in that room should have showed up to counter that one parent.
Can I say something? Because you just brought something up, and Jazz, you said this. I mean, I feel like there's a real connection here. You were talking about this disparate treatment, that there's laws that are supposed to protect all of us, and yet, oh, hey, critical race theory is a real thing, and sometimes laws protect some people and don't protect others. And so, like, you've been a classroom teacher, and you say you also know stuff about education law. You're in California too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this idea of, like, some people get upset and everybody's going crazy and making sure everybody feels okay, and another group, you're just supposed to suck it up and accept abuse.
And I'm going to go ahead and connect that to the way that Black people walk on earth and the way that white people walk on earth. That is what we are talking about. Others on the panel may not agree with me, but I'm going to say it very loud with my full chest that this isn't about white supremacy. It is the new Southern what do they call it? Strategy.
Yeah.
It is the new way to make white people superior. And so what we have to do as parents is first realize it's on purpose. I think that you start looking at it differently when you realize that it's on purpose. And like Allie has been really wonderful showing, it is connected. It's not organic. That's really important. But this idea of making different casts, of saying something, the dog whistle, since, I don't know, was that Barry Goldwater, or maybe it was older than that, where you can actually, it was Goldwater, where you could talk.
About Southern Strategy, Atwater.
Yeah.
You're talking about Atwater.
Okay. Oh, Atwater?
Okay, yeah. The Southern Strategy might be Atwater, but the dog whistle, I believe, was Goldwater, who didn't win the presidency.
Yeah.
So a lot of water going on there, and all of it bad. Okay, and so what happens is that they're able to say things that harken back to the days of Reagan. You guys don't pay taxes, but I have to let you know, ladies. So what? Even if true, that does not mean that the child receives lesser treatment, education, or services. But it's not true. And the problem is that many of us who have tried and worked our buns off to pay taxes, some of us in my generation are the first homeowners of our families, have that deep-seated shame that still can be punched in the chest. Wait, I do pay my taxes. I'm a good person, et cetera, et cetera. And so I have some steps that I think parents should take. First of all, find your tribe before day of school opens. Number 2, sit there of you Black women, even if it's 5 of you, would be a better number, showing up in the principal's office and talking before anything goes wrong. And just showing up. We are a block. Mess with my baby, her baby, our babies. We are a block. Trust me, the principal will start making things different for those children. And then also for the people that those kids play with. One of the things that educators will note is that children and their friends who have powerful parents are treated differently. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. That is the way it is. So make sure that your kids play with other kids, especially if those kids don't have power. And so show up as a block. Show up as a block to the school board. Make sure each of you shake the hands of each of the school board members before anything happens. And then if you can, if you have any socializing that goes on, make sure that you do that. Now, I also want to give something else to all the people in the audience. If you don't live in Temecula or Missouri or any place that this stuff is happening, I need you to know that this is a strategy. The strategy is that if it's none of your business, it is your business. They are even trying to take parents who are actually affected by saying it's none of their business by saying their taxes are a problem. You know, that's not true. It is everyone's business because of the idea of laboratories of democracy. If it works one place, it gets exported around the country and it will work every place. So we stamp it out where we see it. Now, I would like to say, do you know the name of the person who's the head of education in your state? No, it's okay. Email them. Email them before a problem is. Say, I need to know what are the ways that I can make sure that my child gets treated equally in a classroom. Just show up. Even if you don't show up at the school board meeting, show up in their email box. Show up. They have calculations of this email equals so many citizens. So just show up. I guess one other thing, just in case I never get a chance to talk again on this panel, I just want to say that when you visit as a group, don't forget to also visit some other things like the plays. Sit with your people at plays. Sit with your people at like sporting events that are around the kids. And then also, if you give something to the class, like cupcakes for a party or something, do your best to have everybody sign for it and that your stuff, all of your stuff shows up in one box, that you are united. I guess that's it for right now.
Well, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you've given
Thank you
so
for
many
letting me
great pieces of advice. And I want to add in California, Tony Thurmond is our superintendent. He's a former counselor. He has a social work background. He cares about social emotional learning. He beat out another person who ran, who is a pro charter person, and I have a feeling, you know, he'll be set up. So we do need to let him know what's going on in our schools in California, and also show up to support him.
I'm going to put a plug in for Tony too, because he and I worked at the same nonprofit at one point, and he has always been about education. He truly cares. We worked in Richmond, California together.
Great. And he endorsed my candidacy when I ran for school board. So I want to hear from folks who aren't educators but care about education, are showing up, and as white folks, you know, in communities that are really just dealing with, like, I mean, it's kind of hard to know, you know, how do you, if you're not a Black parent that's being directly impacted by this, how do you, what kind of advice do you have for folks to be, whether you want to call it allies or advocates, you know, what are ways that you think that you're trying to encourage other community members, whether they have kids or not, and especially white folks or non-Black folks, to show up in support of Black students, and also obviously trans students who are also, you know, being targeted right now. I'll start with Vanessa and then we can go to Nancy.
Can I go next? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to show up and also speak out and encourage other people to speak out, because it can be infectious if they see one person, because it may be like everybody's uncomfortable to say something, but if one person speaks up, that kind of is like the catalyst for motivating others. Oh, okay, it is okay to speak up. It is okay to tell people that you don't want to hear these jokes, you don't want to hear this talk. But I mean, not being overwhelmingly annoying about it, but just constantly speaking up and constantly sharing, hey, did you see the story? Do you hear what's going on? Did you see what's going on with the book bans? Like, what we have in our area, and I don't know if I saw it on a Moms Against Liberty group or whatever, are those yellow dot stickers, and it says stop book bans, and it has a QR code. And I will just, if I'm going to the grocery store, I'll just stick it on and go walk around. People may not say nothing to me, but they see the sticker and it's going to be in their mind, and they're going to think about that, and maybe they're going to go home and talk to their friends, or they're going to research about it. Every once in a while people do ask me, they're like, what is that about? I didn't hear anything about that. Why are they banning the books? Well, I heard it's all about pornography. So it kind of opens a dialogue without you even having to say anything.
Thank you. And then, Shireen, did you want to pipe in?
Oh, I thought Nancy was going to go next. I'm sorry. I just wanted, okay. No?
You go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I also want us to be careful about the language, right? Allie, I know you didn't mean it, but you said Black children and then trans kids. So are there no Black trans children?
No, there are both. And I appreciate you saying that, right? So Black and or both, but I think I'd like to call out specifically that it's not just marginalized kids right now too. I also want us to be specific and name that those are two groups that are specifically being targeted outside of just all the bad stuff. And I do appreciate you bringing that up.
I just want to make sure that we're also very careful, because there's an assumption that all the LGBTQI children that are being targeted don't happen to be also Black or brown, or right. So like, we have to be like, we can do and in both. We can ensure that we also name it, but it's really important to not allow them to do the division that they're doing. There are Latinx trans children too. Right. So we have to be really careful in our work to not make it sound like we're talking about some kind of exclusion. When we say Black children, we are including trans children. When we say Black children, it's really funny how hard it is for us. But when white people talk about their children, they talk about all children, but they mean white.
Right.
Like, we have to stop letting them frame that. We are talking about all children too, even if we say Black children, because all the other parts of the demographic is included in that dynamic. And I think that sometimes we get stuck, because then it looks like, well, I can only show up for Black children. No, we're saying show up for all children, but understand which children are the most marginalized in the context. I've seen trans women say trans life is worse than Black life. How do you say that? The only way you can say that is if you're denying Black trans women. And that's the problem that we have with the way that they work on that division. Now, I wanted to make sure I spoke to that.
I appreciate that.
Not every, so the other thing about going to schools, right? The schools in this area will not let all the parents come in the door. Right. And some of it's COVID, some of it's because of the shooter issue. So we have to be careful about like what's different for you and your community, because some of the parents can't all go in together, because they'll say it's a violation based on XYZ. So we have to catch the language that they're saying. So I do agree with the whole like show up even in email. That can happen. It could be like, CCing everyone. But some schools do not let you bring cupcakes anymore.
Right.
Because they're afraid that, remember all the little, issues about other children getting sick because some other parent brought something and affected another kid. Like, we have to remember those pieces, because there are different ways that we can show up, but give people the option. Physical your physical presence is not what's necessarily necessary. School boards,
Right.
I'm going to say, please show up as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm also
But
trying to make sure that
I'm
in
gonna
this.
push back a little bit, because what happens is you can only buy things these days, and you can only have things that are sealed in our particular area of the world. But parents have the right to make meetings with principals, and they can sit outside. So you can make the meeting. You're not going to show up just to show up, but you can actually make a meeting, arrange a meeting, and if they can place that meeting in any room or outside if they want to.
So on that
Just
note, I just want to
that's
say
all
there was
pushback.
an incident in San Francisco that happened. Black children were exposed to racist pornography. The NAACP convened a meeting for the superintendent and the community. And so I think logistics are important, and I appreciate Shireen, you bringing that up, because parents sometimes think, well, I should be able to go to the school anytime I want and talk to the teacher anytime I want, and that is not okay. They need to screen people, and people need to teach, number one, but you can make demands, and they are supposed to be meeting with families. So that's something you have to negotiate. If it's okay, I want to jump over to Nancy, because I wanted to hear from you. And then I also wanted to say hi to Ryan, who's in the comments. I'd love for him to be able to join us if he can, as a Black parent who's also personally experienced this. So if there's somebody that on the panel who would be interested in stepping down, but I want to hear Nancy's answer to my question, which is, what are you doing, or what have you seen that's effective for folks that are either community members or white families that want to support Black students? Oh,
Yeah, so a lot of my kind of my expertise, I guess, is around policy, and like what Jazz was saying, understanding that code language and that policy that they're writing that's racially motivated, but doesn't say that it's racially motivated, because it affects one population over the other, but it doesn't say that. So there's an excuse to say, oh, it's not based on any sort of my own bias, but it is, you know. And so I think it's important. I don't have children, but my mother was an educator, and education was a big priority in our family. And so education is a way for us to upper mobility, creativity, innovation. All of this comes from education, from each other, and from institutional education. And it's important for standard citizens like me that care about living in a community with educated kids, is understanding the policy that our local and state government is writing. And so when we do show up and speak, we need to be educated about what policy is on the line and what's being up for a vote. So that's really how I'm contributing, and trying to center the marginalization, because when you center marginalized kids, everyone else is taken care of. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do, my little portion. I'm not an educator, but I care about education. So that's kind of my contribution.
thank you so much. And so I wanted, Susan, if you could introduce yourself. I'm really glad that you could join. We're talking about how, community members can both, how we can protect and support Black families, specifically when they're, we're seeing these incidents happening like in Temecula and elsewhere. But additionally, for any child, right? We want schools that are going to be safe for any child. And specifically right now, we have students that are trans are getting targeted specifically. Students that are identify as Black are getting targeted specifically. And if I'm not trans or not Black, I still want to show up for kids in my neighborhood. So I want to make sure their schools are safe. We've just been having this conversation. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, anytime that you need somebody to drop down, I will be the first to volunteer, because first of all, I am not an educator, but I am the daughter of a lifelong educator, and I do volunteer a great deal, but obviously I'm also not a parent, so I feel obligated to sort of step away. But I do, like I said, I volunteer a great deal. I was never blessed with children, so I don't feel that I have the right to impose. But I'm in North Carolina, and there's a great deal occurring here that's horrific. and I'm trying desperately to get involved to prevent what's occurring. And I was present when it occurred, when they made the rule. And forgive me, sometimes I get tongue tied in my thoughts. Of the Harper v. Hall, and on the day on the 28th of May, when they overturned their own ruling and when all this nonsense is going on. So between all that's going on in the schools and in the nightmare that's going on over here. So, and I love you, Allie. I just love you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But
Appreciate you too.
I am from the San Francisco Bay Area. My father was an educator his entire life and was greatly involved in the civil rights movement. So whatever I can do or offer to help, I would love to. So, but I will step down if anybody needs to.
Well, I want to say, I mean, you use your platform. I mean, that's how we got to know each other. You use your
Yeah.
platform to amplify my voice and
Yeah.
other people's voices. Like I find out about like what's happening, and you help amplify voices. And that may seem like really not that big of a deal, but it actually has made a big difference for me. I feel validated and supported when you amplify me. And I also learn about other accounts because you amplify them. And it seems like a very simple thing, but it's a way of using privilege or using your platform, however big it is, and lifting up the voices of folks that maybe don't get heard as often. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
And I am knowledgeable in politics. That's where my degree is held, is in political science. So I know that much. So if I can help in that way, that's where I try. That's all.
Appreciate it. So Jen, you're in the thick of it. You don't have children in school anymore, but you saw this kind of whirlwind of Christian nationalist behavior. And in a way, you're safer than some of your friends because they can't go after your kids. They're not living with you, right? And you have still been targeted, but you're using your platform to support families in your area. And, what are some of the things that you're finding that are effective in supporting families in Temecula right now?
Definitely listening to the people in my community and what they are experiencing, because I do realize I cannot even remotely understand what that's like. And amplifying their voices and sharing their messages whenever I can. That's, to me, those are the biggest things in this area that I feel like right now that I can do. And then just showing up and continuing to use my voice. And, every time anytime I've been targeted, that's why they want me to stop. They want the less people here talking about this, the less people here speaking out about what's happening to the Black families in this community, or the LGBT, or the ones that are both, or anyone else. They want you to be quiet. And I'm not good at that. So
problem too. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just a hairstylist, but most of my clients are teachers in this community. And then my mother-in-law was a teacher, my sister-in-law is a teacher, so I have a lot of teachers in my family. And that's kind of what first drew me to this, was knowing what they've always done and how hard they've worked as teachers and protecting them. And then watching as everything started happening, it just became so much more than that.
Thank you. And so I also want to introduce, well, first off, I also want to just give another shout out to Mama Jean. I am just so grateful for you posting on TikTok. I'm sorry that you've had to deal with what you've had to deal with. I want you to know that there's a community of us behind you and supporting you. I know it doesn't always feel that way, and it is much larger than even Temecula. It is a nationwide community that we support you, all of the families in Temecula. We have your back. We will continue to talk about this, and I encourage folks to follow the accounts from Temecula. There's two that I'm aware of. Jen, do you want to call them out so people know who they should be following? There's some folks in the comments.
So we've got Mama Jean. We have, I don't know if she's still out there, but the Empress CJJ.
Oh, is she available? I want to call her up.
I know she was in there for a little bit. Okay. I am about an hour and a half away from LA. Mama Jean's in here. Monica Lacombe, and then Brandy Kakoa and Rachel Dennis.
And is Brandy on this? I don't know if she was able to make the
No,
live.
she had to work.
Okay. So if you can follow Brandy Kikoa, she's great. She's very active on Instagram, so she does most of her posting there. Rachel, I share a lot of her content. She's been very vocal about Christian nationalist stuff, and actually her deconstruction experience being a member of a church and having a child that's LGBTQ. I wanted to say hello to sister girl Jess. I really appreciate you. I wanted to bring you up and give you an opportunity
Can someone
to share some
type
thoughts.
those into the type those people we should be following into the conversation, the comments below, please? I don't know if anyone has the opportunity
I
to.
can't see what, and like with my glasses because I'm old, but if somebody could type that in, that would be great.
Well, Allie, I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the awareness that you have brought, and then you've also brought Chloe to my attention also. And my goal here on TikTok is just simple. I don't make content, but is to just simply amplify the voices of marginalized people, kids, LGBTQIA, and I appreciate all that you guys bring to the table, all the knowledge that you guys have brought to this platform.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's another example of we all have different roles. Some of us are talkers, some of us are listeners. Some folks are really good at amplifying on this platform. And there's a lot of ways that we participate and support one another. And so I just want to say I really do appreciate you as well. I love following the folks that you amplify as well, and appreciate your engagement in the comments. And thank you for joining the live. I also wanted to welcome Susan. Love to thank you for joining us. If you'd like to just introduce yourself briefly and then share, what is this conversation stirring for you? Why did, what are some ways that we can support one another and do a better job of protecting and supporting children in our education system that are, being exposed to more and more of this kind of negative experience?
So, hello everyone. I feel like in this country that we need a really strong children's rights type movement, because we really only talk about them and use them as political pawns, and meanwhile everything that we're doing is hurting them, right? And I don't think that our education system, I think that it did an injustice to me, and it's kind of designed for people like me, and white men, right? And it didn't do me very well. So I knew I didn't want to do conventional education when I had kids, and we unschool. But I still have so many concerns because we're doing everything we can to encourage children not to have critical thinking skills and not to understand intrinsic motivation through the public school system. And I want us to do that. I want us to help our children do those things, to understand that you have intrinsic value just being alive, right? And that I feel like we just really do not treat our children well at all.
Well, Allie, can you make either Monica or Nancy mods to manage
added some mods, I think. Yeah. Let me know if there's a problem with that.
Okay. And just to Susan's point, not only do I agree with that, but the part that I think people missed was the laws that were being written was to remove our children's autonomy. Like, it wasn't just about,
Mm-hmm.
parents' rights. Every parents' rights bill is basically saying children are not autonomous in any form from their parents. They belong, they are owned. Like, I need us to understand the language when you hear that. They are basically saying, and actually, Youngkin in Virginia said it, the
Mm-hmm.
children belong to the parents. So when you hear parents' rights, you're hearing ownership. And the other thing that I want to make sure that we're clear about, because I say this all the time, that level of ownership means that the children that truly need the help, those are the parents showing up to have the state out their children.
Mm-hmm.
The
Can I ask?
resources that are necessary, that quote unquote the state has for them, they are basically weaponizing that within the law. And that's not different than the way the law was designed to say that they own Black people. We have to be very clear about what we're hearing.
Yeah.
May I ask about that?
Yeah. What's your question, Susan?
So they're weaponizing ownership over the child. That's what's
Yeah.
occurring.
So think about it. Like as an educator, kids can come to me, and my daughter had a friend who was trans. Them over for a slumber party, but their parents, you know, were very religious, and so there's a lot of stuff going on. And so as schools, like we want to support children, the children first. Just like my kids, when they reach a certain age, my pediatrician said, we're going to start having meetings one-on-one, and you can be invited to participate. But like at 13 or something, my daughter's doctor visits were just her and the doctor. And that's important because if a child is being sexually abused, or if they're being, just want to have privacy. I mean, they have the right to develop their own autonomy. And what some of these laws are doing is saying that children don't have their own rights to their privacy and things like that. And still minors, you want to protect them, but it's really important. And when you have children, that I had to report kids for being abused at home.
Yeah.
I'm a mandatory reporter as an educator. And that's for a reason. And you don't call the parent and say, I'm going to call them because they came into school with a black eye, and now I'm going to call and report. Like, that's putting the child at risk. And so these laws are actually putting children at risk.
Harmful. The
Yeah.
reason I'm asking is because you brought up a very important point when you mentioned somebody, and forgive me, I don't remember who you brought it out, that they were a deconstructed individual from a faith.
Oh, yeah.
I am deconstructed as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so it's a very, and in addition to that, I was an emancipated minor at 15 because of similar what things you're speaking of. I very much understand exactly what you're speaking of. My self-autonomy, I understand all of what you're discussing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's incredibly important. And believe you me, I understand everything you're speaking of.
Right.
I just want to make
I
sure
just
that
want
people,
to, I just, go ahead.
sorry, I just want to make sure that people understand that when you hear parents' rights, that's what they're saying. Children have no autonomy from their parents. That Allie spoke to, the 1557 law that was written by that whole, for the crew, they made identity, i.e., what we would call immutable rights, equal to political ideology. So other people's ideas, political stance, were equal to those children's identities. That's why I was really uncomfortable when everyone kept calling it a Don't Say Gay bill. It wasn't a Don't Say Gay bill. It was a bill that said children did not have any say over their bodies. And
And I want to make
we
it
have to be
more
careful with that
nuanced.
language, because they're
Yeah,
using that by doing the whole sexual mutilation thing, right? Like, you
right.
have to be careful when you're hearing those words. You also have to be able to come up with the messaging to counter those words. Children do have autonomy. Parents are still responsible for children, but the state has no say.
I get it. I get that.
Well,
It's
apparently with these new bills, the state has a lot to say.
That's the
In
problem.
fact, what they're doing is I'm not clear. I'm gonna give some thought to the idea about child autonomy, especially when it comes in case of sexual orientation, expression, and gender expression. But I know quite clearly that they are not saying parents' rights for people who look like me.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to take away parents' rights. So what they're saying, their children are owned by them, and because they are taxpayers, my children are owned by them too.
who
And so
who.
this
Sorry.
is not a parents' rights issue. This is an issue of who gets to tell our kids how to think and act. So in that sense, yes, there is some sort of autonomy, but it really is that I own my kids, I own your kids. You need to submit in a way to me, not in the traditional sense, but whatever you want needs to be submerged into what I want. And whatever you want has to be weighed against what and this would be a white person speaking, as a white person wants. And if you aren't in line with our Christian nationalistic or conservative values, then you aren't going to be recognized, and you will lose this battle over what your children are taught to think. I also want to
Yeah.
say that before I get too much into the white language, I want to say that it's about a supremacy. It's about a type of thought that is valued over other types of thought. And that has often been symbolized by white supremacy. But I have to say that people like, oh my goodness, there's so many of them, like Nanomi and others are not actually white. They are actually children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. And what that means is that still it is the tradition in the United States of America that in order to become integrated, assimilated American, you must agree to anti-Blackness. And that is something that I think people need to talk to their children about also. I feel if we're going to do any, what someone said, censure of Black parents, it would only be that you really have to speak to what your life experience shows, that they will not be too young to experience it. Therefore, you're going to have to find the words to prepare them for it. And when we do that, 100% we need to start. Yeah. And when we start doing that, and I kind of like the term anti-Blackness, more than, white supremacy, because, for a long time, people who have had these, I just want to be decent and I don't want drag shows at libraries, that does not make me a white supremacist, right? And they can kind of hide behind that and then go into a fuffle and decide that whatever else comes after that sentence isn't worth listening to. So I would instead say that this normalization of a particular set of values, and that is the only set of values that there are in the world, that is a problem. It leaves too many people out. I think that if we start saying that, they will have to feel what they are, the shrinking majority that will soon be a minority. And that's why they're grabbing power, in order not to feel the reality of that coming on. All right. Thank you for letting me butt in.
Thank you. And so I'm seeing some folks in the comments. I don't know. I invited you, but I don't know if you can join. Claudia, if you can join, and then is she able to join? I don't know. Can folks hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then also, not Nebraska Nice, I'm inviting you too. I don't know if you can join as well. who has worked as an educator as well and also knows policy. And I don't know if Chloe, if you want to jump in, or Jen or Shireen, if you guys want to jump in.
Yeah,
Just
I think I saw a comment that said that it's not protecting LGBTQI parents' rights. I caught that. I just want to make sure that we're clear. They are saying parents' rights for very specific parents who feel they have ownership over all the other children, i.e., using taxpayer dollar conversations, as well as basically saying we are the better parents.
Right.
Because your child is gay, you are the bad parent. Because your child is this, we are trying to use the state to fix your child. I want people to hear the words properly, because the way that they say them sounds like they're like, oh, we're protecting all children and we are speaking for all parents. They are attempting to do that by law. But what they're doing is codifying white Christian nationalism into law. And you hear parents' rights and you go, sorry about this. You hear parents' rights and you go, of course parents want to protect their children. Of course parents care for their children. It's the of course part. That's not the codification. And the drag queen thing is one of the biggest ones that I have issues with. Are you telling me those children showed up at a drag queen event by themselves? Were they not accompanied by parents? They just miraculously showed up to an event with drag queens all alone. That you have to shift. I'm telling you. Because what you're saying is,
I have a question.
Wait, but hold on. What you're saying is that these children are unparented.
They took an Uber. They did. If it's San Francisco, it could happen.
Yeah, okay, well,
but you get what I'm saying, right? You have to course correct the way they're framing that. So you think you are the better parent than the parents that decided to bring their children to the story time event.
Is it like ICWA? Is it very similar to the concept of ICWA, where they're going in there with the idea of we're a better parent than these indigenous parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very close to ICWA.
The one that I've been watching is this new trans bill in Georgia, because they have written in autism and other comorbidities that tend to run in transgender individuals. So now they've like grouped, I mean, they're making the net they're casting is wider now. But it's so concerning that we're just adding in these little nuanced pieces here that are going to set precedent. That's the biggest piece here, is that if they go untested, unchallenged, they set the precedent.
Okay, so here's my question. They're going in with the assertion that it's no longer human autonomy, it's governmental rule of an individual. Instead of saying women don't, we already recognize they took away women's autonomy. Now they're going in and they're taking child's autonomy. They're simply taking away human autonomy.
I mean,
period.
Go back though. Go back. They're not doing this new, right?
No, it's not new.
That's what I'm saying. Is that like there's a few of us white-faced people in here that these melanated people have been telling us about for 400 years.
Yes.
So,
they set the example with ICWA, and they set the example. I mean, they have years of precedent.
So it's the autonomy that I'm saying, like the autonomy, white, cis, heterosexual men in this country are the only ones who have ever had autonomy of their bodies. They're the only ones, right?
Yes.
So everybody else has had to have laws passed to get theirs. And this has been since 1619.
Yeah,
We're not
so
going to study critical race theory at all because it doesn't make any sense.
Right,
There's
because
no
we need
like.
to move past we need to just
It
move past
it
it.
makes us get in our
So
fifis.
on this,
We
wait,
don't
so
like
we want to
that.
introduce two new voices. I've invited two
okay.
folks up, Miss Cake and Well Read Black Girl. I'd love to hear you introduce yourselves. If you want to start, Miss Cake, and then I love, just what's drawn you to the conversation. What thoughts do you have to share? And then Well Read Black Girl, if you could also share some thoughts too, I would love to hear them.
I would like well-read black girl to go first.
Okay.
Okay. Hi,
Please.
everyone.
Thank you for
Um,
joining.
Absolutely, Chloe. Thank you for inviting me, letting me know that this was even happening. I am a fierce for all children because I think children are the best parts of us. They're kind of like if we could redo ourselves, we could pick some cool little kid and watch them grow in ways that we were stifled, and we can be those people that can support them so they can fully develop in ways that now that we know we can dream up. But when we were children, we didn't even know to begin to dream. So kids, that's it. That's it for me. That is the sweet spot. I have been organizing in education as a grassroots community organizer for almost a decade now. I am from Texas, Houston, Texas, actually. I don't know if you guys have heard about all of the unfun things that they are doing here in Texas as far as education goes, but it's not new. This is actually a playbook, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Digital Sister hit on it. Like, she has been dancing all over this playbook. And I mean, I'm just excited to hear somebody know that this is a system that they use. This is a playbook step by step.
Yeah.
And once you understand the playbook, now you can start running some blitzes. And that is what we have been doing in Houston. I mean, they tried to shut 10 of our Black and brown schools. I ended up going to jail for it, but they didn't close our schools.
I've been wanting
So
to talk to you for the longest time. We need to talk later. I don't want to interrupt, but our district hired the guy that I think closed your schools.
Oh, wow.
That's how connected we are. That
We
is
need
how
to talk.
connected
Oh,
these systems
Lordy.
are.
Oh,
We need
my.
to talk. You know what? I can slide you a white hat style manila folder that will help you in your push quite a bit. I run Oppo. And you know what?
So
When I
sorry to
tell you
interrupt, but
I
keep
swing a
going.
mighty sword for children, I am not afraid to use Oppo. And that is one of the things that we have to fully embrace and understand. It's hard to imagine that adults will actually take aim and fire at children, but they are taking aim and they're firing at children.
Yes.
And so the quicker we get over the shock, the quicker we can get to work and do something to protect our kids. I personally think that this is the ultimate goal is to overturn Brown versus the Board of Education, because if they can overturn Brown versus the Board of Education, then they can overturn all civil rights.
Yes.
Because Brown versus the Board of Education is the glue that holds our civil rights together. And we need to be aware of the fact that as we make forced decisions to protect our children in this horrible and crazy game that these people are playing with our children's lives, we are actually forcing people and parents out of conversations. And what I mean by that is we need to unpack our own biases, our own fears, because quite honestly, I know a lot of people that want all the good things for their little brown child, all the good things for their little black child, but they don't know any trans children. And they will vote against trans children to protect their black child. And actually what they're doing is cutting the throats of black children. All of these things are wrapped together. And that's why they picked this big, scary, unknown thing. The trans population is such a small population that there's a lot of unknown and a lot of fear around it. And these people are tapping on the fear and on the unknown and exploiting it. So parents are going to do everything they can, right, to protect their children. And so they write these bills, writing out the rights of trans children and the parents of trans children, and then they drop these amendments, right? Like, we don't want trans children and then fill in the blank. And oh, by the way, here's an amendment that says you can't teach Black history. You know what I'm saying? Like, our rights are 110% tied together. And if we don't unpack our own biases, all of our children are going to continue to suffer. I think that there's a conversation we need to have around privatization in education. The more private we try to make education, the more likely these anti-human thoughts and ideas and things like that are given space in public education. If we keep public education public, there are certain things you can and cannot do in a public space. But as soon as we start chipping away from public education and we start funding, with taxpayer money, and hear me, right? Because I'm only here to speak the truth. When we start funding with taxpayer dollars, parochial schools, when we start funding with taxpayer dollars, voucher programs, when we start funding with taxpayer dollars, these charter schools and things like that, where they can actually pick and choose the children from our neighborhoods that get to go to the schools that used to be their neighborhood schools, we are opening space then to let these religious zealots right on in our door. And, it's not the fault of charter parents. It is not the fault of parents that choose homeschool, because all of these parents are doing the best that they can to protect their children. We have got to start thinking about our neighbor's child. My children right now, I've got 2 adult children and a 4-year-old. 2 of my children identify as the sex they were assigned at birth. I don't know what my 4-year-old's going to do, but I tell you what, just in case, I'm going to make sure these trans kids have every single thing that every other child has a right to. And if that gives me a moment worth of pause at all, it is not somebody else's problem. It is mine. I need to deal with that. And if I can't deal with that, if I cannot look at children and just see children, then I am in the wrong place. And we as adults need to speak freely about it. Like, I am the one, I have told people that look just like me, you're anti-Black and you're not welcome here. And I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to save the lives of children. I have been told I've had to do a lot of work around, and 2 of my sisters are trans, but they're my sisters, right? That's what I see. I see my sisters. I don't see somebody else's children. I see my sisters. I have been told that there were things that I needed to work on to be a good advocate for trans children, and I take it to heart. But these conversations are not easy, and they're not light, and they should not ever be led by white people. Someone said, from margin to center. And listen, I was about to shout like I was in church, because that's exactly what needs to happen. We organize and we move from margin to center. People that get the mic, how about this? Why don't we let our children speak for themselves? When we're trying to formulate all of these ideas and plans and strategies and things like that, there is nothing that's going to move a person like their own child. And our children are far better. Once again, they're like our little redos. They're far better than us. So maybe let's stop talking as much as adults and start listening more to children. And that's one of the things that we want to do in neighborhoods, in communities. We're going to do the work. We're going to find the place. We're going to buy the pizza. We're going to set up the chairs, and we're going to sit you guys down, and we're going to let you guys talk about it. And we'll take notes. What do you imagine your school looking like? What makes you feel safe when you go to school? Not what makes your parents feel safe, but what makes you feel safe? Do you have more cops in this school? Because you know what a child told me, and I was like so very proud of this child. I am 100% anti-cops in school. I think we need counselors and nurses and librarians. We don't need cops. We need counselors. We don't need cops. This kid looked at me and he said, I know a lot about dogs and I really like dogs. And I don't want drugs in my school. But do you know a basset hound can do the exact same thing as a German shepherd? I said, what do you mean, young man? He was like, well, I don't want drugs in my school, so maybe a dog, sniffing out drugs ain't a bad idea, but it doesn't have to be a Doberman. It doesn't have to be a German shepherd. Why can't it be a cute little pug? Why can't, these children, this is their life. And I walk around all the time thinking it would be great if, right? I had agency over this or I had agency over that. We can give them this if we just listen to them. But I'm glad, Chloe, that you let me know that this was going on. This is a powerful conversation, and I hope it grows. And I'm here. I organize in my community. I will not stop. We've had some wins. Right now, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about the TEA takeover and Mike Morath. Mike Morath is our commissioner. So right now, Houston, which is like the big blue dot in Texas, we are holding out on education. They are targeting us, trying to disenfranchise us even more. They've managed illegally. Let me throw this out here. They are breaking laws to take over our school district. We have petitioned to the Department of Justice, and we are hoping that the Department of Justice comes through for us. And this is something else that I'm going to say to you guys. Biden is
organized. Right now, is there somebody? Is there an organization that folks on this live can go to and support, donate, or amplify? Yes. Just when you're saying we, who should we be supporting?
Journey for Justice is, and I don't know if any of you guys have heard about. Yeah, you know G2. That's my brother.
I have friends with Journey for Justice.
Yes, G2 is my mentor, and he's a godsend in Texas right now. We organize heavily with Journey for Justice, and Journey for Justice is, once again, they organize March in the Center. When I tell you these people are the truth and will change your life, you will go there trying to change the life of a child, and you will come back feeling renewed and ready. So that is the organization that I would say donate to. And the good thing about Journey for Justice is it's a national org. So if you're in Tennessee or South Carolina, we've got a great presence in California. We put somebody on the school board over there.
I know, my friend.
Mike is awesome. Oh my. Ask Mike to dance for you. But Mike is a good guy. He's a very good guy. So I would say Journey for Justice, please give. Link in with them because they do actions all the time. We're actually going, yes, ma'am, Journey for Justice. We are actually going to be doing an Equity or Else town hall. And we're going to be unpacking a lot of the things that are being discussed right here in this forum.
So when that happens, when that happens, please tag us. We'll amplify and tag me, and I will also share with other folks. And we all, we need to build this network in this community so that we can amplify each other's work. And I just want to name, normally I do this for an hour and a half. I want to respect time of folks. I'm so grateful that you joined and we made this connection because I've been looking for you because I have a friend who found out about what was going on in Houston. He hired one of the consultants that closed schools in Houston.
Oh, wow.
And he never graduated from college, but he's a consultant somehow. Yep. And so this is a grift. And we should definitely, I think, I would love to just have a whole live on what's, if you're open for it in the future.
Always.
To just talk about what happened in Houston, what's been going on there so people can get aware. Right. Because as you said, this is all connected. All of this is connected. And the more that I talk to other folks, the more I realize the same people are behind, they're starting all these fires.
Absolutely.
Right? It's the same person starting all these fires. They're not all, it's not lightning. Mm-mm. It's not organic.
No,
it's
same players. Players.
Mm-hmm. With that, please reach out to me offline via DM. We can connect. But I'd love to just have everyone get a chance to say like final thoughts. This is obviously ongoing work. We're not going to fix it in a day. We do this in community, and you all are honestly a light in my life. Like when I get bummed out about the news and reading about different things, they want us to lose hope. They want us to think that we are alone. There are more of us than there are of them. And this is one way that we connect ourselves, sustain ourselves, and support one another. And we don't have to have all the skills to fix everything. We're different, and there's a reason for that, because we each have unique things that we can contribute, unique perspectives we can share. And so that's my final thoughts. I'd love to hear, I'll let Chloe, you do the final words. But if Jazz, if you want to take it next, and then Jen. Miss Cake, I didn't get a chance. I'm sorry, we didn't get a chance, but I did want to hear some final thoughts from you. So if you can go next, and then we'll just do a quick kind of closeout for this live. So Miss Cake, thank you so much for joining.
Certainly. Hello. I just scrolled in, and my mother and I are both. Um, she she taught high school, and I was an early childhood educator. And we are both dyed in the wool radicals of the librarian type. And I think that the next best thing that we can do for our country is to radically change our schools and our school system. I think we need a lot more federal regulation. I think that might be the way that we have to go. Um, I was blessed with, both my brother and I were blessed with parent created alternative schools, but they were ethical. I mean, one was actually just part of the school district, and they were ethical, and we both benefited from that greatly. But that magic can be incorporated into all our schools. It's there. We can reach out for it. It's just right
And there are some really amazing schools doing amazing work that we
there.
never hear about. And that's
Mhm.
why it's important to have educators talking about this, not talking heads or these paid moms for liberty folks, but actual educators who see the beautiful work that's going on in schools. And so I want to quickly close it out. So that, to respect folks' time, if Jazz, if you want to go next, and then Jen, Shireen, Susan, Miss Cake, and Well Read Black Girl, and then final thoughts for Chloe. But let's just keep it real quick, and just because we're going to keep this going, we'll talk next week. We're going to keep this going every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Central time, and 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to reach out to each other, to keep an eye out for kids that might be looking different. And I just want us to remember that unity is stronger than even the best warrior on their own. And so, make that community where you can. Make that community where you can. If anyone's unsure about some of the issues that we brought up, then I want to recommend several places like the ACLU, et cetera, but I also want to recommend and uplift Stand Against Racial Justice, Surge, which is an organization where white people can talk to other white people about race and learn that way. It is a fantastic organization. So with that, thank you, Allie, and thank you,
Thank
panel.
you.
It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Jen.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I've gotten so much good information to take back to the people in my community from this. My head is still spinning, so I'm very glad that Allie records this because I'll be able to go watch it like 5 times and take notes.
Yeah.
And I think this is what's going to fix this. This is working together, reaching out to people, like working with our communities, but working outside of our communities and building communities outside is really what's going to help us with this. If we stick in our own little bubbles, we're never going to solve anything.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your support of families in Temecula and your volunteer. I mean, this is your free time. I really appreciate it. And your voice as well.
Thank you.
Shireen.
Yeah, I would say that the thing that I want to make sure that we walk away with is that we all bring different skill sets to this conversation. We've all seen different versions of this. But I want us to remember that history is, none of this is new, right? This conversation around bodily autonomy, even for children, is rooted in the foundation of this country. And even though in our time period it sounds like it's new, unique, and different, it's not. I mean, there is not a random reason, right, that they're talking about child marriage. There's not a random reason that they're talking about child labor laws. These are not random. They are all intricately and well woven into this country.
Mm-hmm.
It has always been here. What happened is once we got some rights, we just felt like everything was fine. And now we're watching people roll back those rights. We've only had these rights for 50 years. But then think about Reconstruction. That was 12 years. I call this the anti-civil rights era, acre, because once we achieved it, everyone stepped back and said, oh, we good. We were never good. Our children are not safe. And we need to make sure that all children are really safe, including from the people who claim to be parents.
Right. Thanks. Digital Sister, follow her. She's doing a really great job breaking down narratives. Thank you for joining us. I'm always grateful for what you have to share. Susan, thanks for joining us. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I feel privileged to be speaking with all of you, and thank you for your patience. I wanted to say one word in relation to something that well-read Black girl, and forgive me, I missed your name. You mentioned something about it being human rights, and somebody else mentioned it earlier, and addressing people where they, I think it's the concept is where they are, just being kind, like to the neighbors, to our neighbors, even in the state they're in. And I think that's so important. That's the hardest thing. That is the hardest thing, is to still address them where they are. Even these Christian personalities sometimes is really hard to address with kindness, because some of them are still genuine where they are, and they may not be nationalist or nationalistic. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line. But I don't want to stay on it. But I just wanted to thank you, and thank you all for your patience. And I do want to mention, I come from a work atmosphere of men, so I have a dominant personality. Feel free to check me. Feel free to check me. So I apologize if I tend to be abrupt. I apologize.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for your contributions. Miss Cake, do you want to say some final thoughts before we sign off?
I do. I think a lot of people felt like, because there was so much upheaval through the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement and so on, that we're done. Or like, hey, we're getting tired of this. Can't you guys just stop? And it's like, no, your boot's still on our neck. Please, we're joking. And this is, I think, in education is just it's the fertile ground for bringing about a more just society. And we have to work on it. We just have to.
Thank you. Well-read Black girl. Before Chloe takes us out.
I think one of the things that I would just like is to, because I am well read. Brittany Love is an educator. She is an abolitionist teacher. And she is phenomenal in the fact that she really exposes, and it's in a book. So when she calls you out, you can just close the book, look around, and nobody has to know, but you better open that book back up and keep reading. She is extremely good at exposing our own biases within education, and then teaching us how to unpack and how to redress, regroup, and go back to fight for children. In this space, do not take it that just because you have a child in school or you care about children that you do not need to do anti-racist work. Because you are working within any space that has anything to do with children, you need to do anti-racist work quicker than anybody else, because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear it. But there's a big difference when you see little blonde, blue-eyed children having things taken from them, because little black children, they have always been shortchanged. Things have always been taken from the black community, and we find ourselves in this space now. So non-black people, you need to address it, because we're here to fight for children. We don't have time for your feelings. If you feel like you need to cry, honey, bring you a napkin, put it in your pocket. You can't have mine because I'm going to give mine to a child. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about us. It's about the kids. So put your armor on. Do your homework and let's get this work done. I also wanted to throw this out. We should seriously consider making us a bad actors registry that goes nationwide, because what happens is we kick their asses out of Houston, they come right on over to San Francisco. They hit, you know what I'm saying? So we need to get us a bad actors registry going on. So when they show up at our school board meetings, we're like, nah, bud, Houston already warned us that they had a problem when you were there.
That's
So,
excellent.
just something to throw out there. And again, thank you guys for creating this space. Children deserve it.
Thank you for joining. And we'll definitely talk. You have to promise we're going to talk. We have too much notes to share. And then finally, Chloe, if you can close this out, you always preach. You always make me feel really inspired.
Listen, listen, you all said what needed to be said, folks. Hey, if these folks don't want to protect our children, we want to protect our children. And that's what, hey, I know that's right. That's what matters. We don't need permission to protect our children. Let's get this 10 toes down. Let's start with just what was said. Self-examination. Let's get ourselves together as a community and let's go. Our kids are waiting. Don't have our kids standing around saying everyone else talking about these white kids' feelings. What about mine? No, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing that anymore, okay? We got this. We got this.
Much
I
love
love
to
you
all
all.
of you guys.
Thank you.
Join us again on Tuesdays, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Reach out to us via DM. Me and Chloe are holding this space. Shireen is like our special, fabulous guest. And, really appreciate the educators who show up. Erin Jones, I want to thank you as well for showing up with her expertise. Well-read Black girl, I hope you join us often because we need to be talking to Black women, Black educators, folks who've been doing the work. Thank you, Jazz, for an educator and somebody who knows the law. Jen, for your consistent advocacy on the ground. Miss Cake and Susan for joining as well, and NC Blue Dot. If I missed you, follow me, and I will be posting this on YouTube. So if you missed any of this, and also I'll be posting all the handles of folks who participated, so you can go to their page and follow, and share. And additionally, please follow Temecula parents who were not able to join us. Jen, can you read out those names again? And I will be posting as well. It's Miss Jean.
There's Mama Jean.
Mama Jean.
There's the Empress CJJ, Monica Lacombe, Brandy Cocoa, and Rachel Dennis.
Excellent. And I will be do TikToks and share their stuff because they need to be amplified, and we want to have them on lives in the future if they don't have enough followers. We need to get them to 1,000 followers. Thank you all in the comments. Thank you, folks. Thank you, moderators, as well. Appreciate y'all, and see you next week.
Thank you.